Hello, and thank you for your patience as we get started. I know that many of you are coming from other sessions, and we want to stay on schedule and be respectful of time. My name is Joseph Jones, and I am happy to be here with you this afternoon to explore support services and adaptations universities are implementing to create more accessible campuses, programs, and classes for students with disabilities. I'm the Executive Director of the Harkin Institute for Public Policy and Citizen Engagement. I'm excited to be here today to talk about this really important topic. At the Harkin Institute, we serve to uphold the legacy of retired U.S. Senator Tom Harkin, who was essential in developing and passing the Americans with Disabilities Act. In supporting Senator Harkin's legacy, we engage in long-term research projects, and for me personally, as an individual who works with both students in and outside the classroom, I feel a great personal commitment to inclusion for all when it comes to education. Inclusive education is of the utmost importance. It allows each student to access universities, support services, and prepares for them a path to postgraduate opportunities. Specifically related to the rights of people with disabilities, inclusive education is essential to having full equality within one's school, community, country, and beyond. The WHO reports that there are almost 1 billion people with disabilities worldwide, and you know this. When people with disabilities are excluded from participating in university courses, campus events, and other educational opportunities due to lack of access, their choices become very limited and their ability to learn is inhibited. When people with disabilities are excluded, 13% of the global population are losing out on equitable education. Some of the most common barriers specifically for education are inadequate funding, lack of institutional support, physical inaccessibility, social stereotypes, institutional segregation, and limited support and/or funding. The barriers I just mentioned oftentimes result in a lack of initial resources for those who wish to receive an education. Additionally, such stereotypes and segregation can lead to low rates of returning university students. Various combinations of barriers can also present psychological barriers to people with disabilities who may wish to become educated but feel uncomfortable pursuing it, as they will not have access to the types of support systems they may have had in their primary and secondary education facilities. For low and middle income countries, it's especially hard to tackle some of these barriers that result specifically in low rates of individuals with disabilities in educational facilities and settings. According to the Global Poverty Project, up to 95% of children with disabilities in some of the world's most impoverished nations are out of school, even though education is a universal human right. However, there are many avenues that governments, organizations, and educational facilities can pursue in order to improve educational access as a whole. It's important to define what an inclusive education is and what that looks like in today's world. Broadly speaking, this includes breaking down social barriers, creating a culture of inclusion, providing adequately trained educators, physical accessibility, and the establishment of support services that assist in postgraduate employment opportunities, and more. Nations and states across the globe are contributing to efforts to make their universities more accessible to all. As previously mentioned, the Harkin Institute is located on a private university campus in the United States. The Institute has been expanding and growing our student-led research and communications program. We've begun to grow out our small facility and have undertaken a project for an entirely new building. An important part of the design for this new Harkin Institute building has been intentionally planning for accessibility and universal design. Envisioning how this space will serve as a tribute to Senator Harkin's legacy, the hope is that people will come to experience the building itself and learn about design concepts that enhance inclusion and access for all users. Important to this endeavor has been the addition of thought leaders from the disability services field, many of whom identify as people with disabilities themselves, into the design process. Throughout the process, our Disability Policy Advisory Committee has partnered with an architecture company to become and better understand the principles of universal design, share concept drawings, and receive feedback on building features through in-person and distance meetings and the exchange of resources. The results of this focus will be seen throughout the building, in some ways more obvious than others. Most obvious will be a prominently placed ramp that takes users up to the second level of the building. The stairway is tucked far in the back to encourage all users to use the same means of access to the upper spaces. The stairway itself is designed to be wider than average to allow two individuals communicating through sign language to walk next to each other with a shorter than required stair rise to assist those with physical limitations. Less obvious features will also be included throughout the space, like switches, placed lower on walls, and easy access, contrasting color, textile floors, all the things that you're familiar with. And we look forward to showcasing all the universal design features included throughout the building to guests for years to come. Across the globe, we know that our friends in Jordan, led by His Royal Highness Prince Mored, established the rights to guarantee citizens with disabilities, including specific language to guarantee that no person is excluded from educational institutions due to disability. And the Ministry of Education even revised curricula to include subjects of rights of persons with disabilities. We have a long way to go in making universities accessible, but we're joined today by panelists from organizations and universities that are making great strides in this area. In the interest of time, I will not go through the list of things that I was going to point out from each of their organizations as their accomplishments, but just to say that each has been instrumental in creating more inclusive and accessible world for students. So Kristie and Miriam and Djati will present first, and then we will have a switch out with Maya and Yakir coming up front, and then Lukas, Tim, and Claudia together, and then we will end with Amena, and then we'll have hopefully time for questions. Thank you all for your time and attention, and we'll pass it over to Katie. Or Kristie, sorry.
It confused me for a minute. I thought it wasn't my turn. My name is Kristie Orr, and I am the Director of Disability Resources at Texas A&M University in the United States. I'm also the current president of the Association on Higher Education and Disability, which is a United States-based organization, but actually has an international presence with members from over 30 countries. And our organization is intended to provide professional development for disability resource professionals such as myself, working to make sure that students have access in higher education settings. I am here representing the Guden Project, which I will tell you a little bit more about here in just a minute. So the idea, humanity and inclusion actually initiated the idea. You may have heard of HI. They used to be Handicap International, now Humanity and Inclusion. And they initiated the idea of an international network and worked with the Harkin Institute that Joseph is a part of to start talking about how that would work. And basically the international network was to support colleges and universities in making sure that students with disabilities have access to their facilities, to their education. HI came up with the idea of having a half-day event prior to the Harkin Institute, which was held in Paris last April, so April of 2019. When they initiated this idea, HI started contacting, and I believe the Harkin Institute helped with contacting potential partners. So colleges and universities and organizations that might want to be a part of this network. They invited them all to this half-day meeting the day before the Harkin Institute, thinking that would be a great way to get people there who were going to the Institute but also were interested in higher education. Those groups all met together, including the Association on Higher Education and Disability, which is, we call it AHEAD, so it's easier to refer to it as AHEAD from now on. At this half-day meeting, several speakers presented, somewhat like we're presenting today, about higher education and ways that they were providing access for disabled students in their colleges and universities. And then we developed a founding document. And that founding document was intended to be the charter for the organization called the Global University Disability and Inclusion Network. It's a lot of words, and I have to think through the letters when I say them, but we just call it Guden, so that's mostly what we go by. There were 14 organizations that signed the founding document. The picture here shows the 14 representatives who signed that founding document. So they included HI, AHEAD, IDPP, CGE, INSA Lyon, Conseil Régional de la France, University of Arizona Disability Resource Center, VSHESH, AUCD, St. Cloud State University, Texas A&M University Disability Resources, the Harkin Institute, BDF, and Beacon College. In addition to those 14 founding organizations, there were also over 70 participants from universities around the world. Some of them were there in the room with us, and then some participated virtually. So those included France, the United States, UK, Canada, Senegal, Tunisia, Switzerland, Bangladesh, China, Austria, Palestine, Serbia, and others. And at that meeting, AHEAD, which is again my organization, presented a plan to be the sponsor of this new organization. So I have never started a new organization before. I don't know how many of you have, but that takes someone actually taking the lead in order to make that happen. So AHEAD agreed to start the process going with Guden, but not to be the organization, but just to help get it started. We then had the opportunity to present to the COSP 12, which is the Conference on States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in New York last June, and basically just presented this idea to them. And the idea for Guden is that Guden has several things involved in our vision. The vision is sharing best practices on inclusion of students, faculty, staff, and administrators with disabilities in higher education settings around the world. Initiating or promoting research on inclusion and accessibility-related topics. Facilitating exchanges, meetings, and interactions between members. Participating in data collection efforts and monitoring of the impact of the network. Working with employers and other stakeholders to help students develop the skills that will lead to success in the labor market after graduation, and other activities that advance the purposes of the network that were supported by the membership. So one of the things that's really important to Guden is that the membership owns this organization. So it is not AHEAD's organization or HI's organization or the Harkin Institute's organization, but that the members really need to be the ones who develop it and make it what they want it to be. So as I mentioned, the Association on Higher Education and Disability is sponsoring or hosting Guden. The first thing that we did was we developed a listserv. Because we have members from all across the world, we felt like the easiest way for them to connect, given that they're in all different time zones, was to have a listserv initiated. After that, we asked members to volunteer to be part of one of the working groups that we came up with. So the working groups are Strategy, which is the group that's focusing on the social mission and the strategy of Guden, considering both short-term and longer-term objectives and action planning. There's two subgroups to the strategy working group. One is working on data collection and needs assessment, and the other one is focusing on research and collection of successful practices and experiences to be shared. Second is the fundraising group. So again, with no actual person who's in charge of this organization, there needs to be some way to have money in order to make the organization run. So that group is working on defining a business plan for 3 to 5 years and preparing tools and management documents. Third is a communication subgroup. So this group focuses on the visibility strategy. So how do we get the word to people about the group? How do we get members to join? And then in addition, organizing the next event that will be held, whether it's a virtual event or an in-person event, that group is working on that event. Fourth is the web platform. So the web platform actually has been started. So we have claimed a web name, or whatever it is that you say. I'm not a technology person. And now we're working on actually what is involved in the web. So what's the content that is on that website? Fifth is the administration, which is the group focusing on the operational structure. So what is the formal entity? What are the costs? What's the administrative process? What does a membership look like? Are there different levels? How do people become members? And that's all been being worked on by that group. Sixth is the animation of the network. So this group is focusing on the development and animation of the modalities and partner management. They are working to develop potential partner universities and other partners that could be involved. So, as you can imagine, there have been challenges. So this organization officially started in the summer of 2019 as far as starting to develop it. So one of the challenges that I'm sure many of you have faced here, maybe even like me who couldn't fall asleep last night, are the different time zones that we're working in. So we have some volunteer members who are in Australia who have not been able to participate in any of the meetings that we've had because they're sleeping during the meetings. So that's been a challenge. The committee members are all people who are working in colleges and universities. So their main priority is to their student and their campus. And this is something additional for them to do. So that's been a challenge. And then, as I mentioned earlier, allowing members to develop the organization while also giving them structure. So trying to just develop something from nothing is very challenging for them. So I've already gotten my time notice. So I'm going to go to the next slide because I feel like this is really important. So the website is, as I said, there's nothing there yet, but you can go look at it if you want. It's gudenglobal.org. The working groups are continuing, and they are looking for more members if anyone wants to join a working group. There will be a Guden event in 2020, and that's being developed right now. And most important, there is an email address, which is guden@ahead.org. If you're interested in joining either as a general member or as a volunteer, please email that website, or if you want to join the listserv, email that email address, and they will get you involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristie. And we'll hopefully have time for questions for all of our experts after the session's over or at the very end, but you can catch any of them throughout the rest of the time they're here. We'll now move to Miriam to tell us about Ecuador, what's happening there.
Good afternoon, dear public. In this occasion, I will present the experience of the inclusion of students with disabilities in the Salesian Polytechnic University, an experience focused on people and their potential. Ecuador is a country located in South America. It has 18 indigenous nationalities and 14 communities with diverse traditions on their own worldview. The Salesiana Political University of Ecuador was founded 25 years ago under the charism of San Juan Bosco. That is based on his thinking that education depends on the formation of the heart and that the good education is the germ of the many virtues. Therefore, the objective of the university was to serve the sectors that have historically been excluded from education, especially indigenous people and nationalities, in order to form good Christians and honest citizens. Later, people with visual disabilities were integrated into the university, from whom the Tiflo Library was created, which is an instance that provides support to students with visual disabilities from other universities as well as schools, and in the development of accessible material and screen reader courses. The university has 3 locations in the main cities of Ecuador: Quito, Guayaquil, and Cuenca, with a total of 250 students with disability enrolled. Actually, the support for students with disability is carried out through the UNESCO Chair on Support Technologies for Educational Inclusion, with the contribution of research groups that promote investigation processes and links with society to manage inclusion process in a correct and contextualized manner and to create technological prototypes and solutions the demands of students with disabilities and the population in general. These research groups linked to inclusion work are GI, Research Group in Inclusive Education, TCAD, Information and Communication Technologies associated with disability, Djati, Research Group in Artificial Intelligence and Assistive Technology. As an innovative aspect of this experience, we can say the permanent work to naturalize the presence of people with disabilities in other human diversities in the university. The work has focused on changing the culture on the university community towards respect for human diversity. To this, the Day of the Inclusive Cultura is developed annually as an expression of the students on their academic and artistic potential, among others. This space also shows the technological device that the students of technical careers develop for their classmates. These activities have helped teachers to overcome the myth that people with disabilities will not be able to learn like other students. They will learn differently as long as the teacher provides several options to collect and process the information. For this purpose, the universal learning design is a very useful tool that is shared with teachers to apply in the classroom. The impact of this project can be seen in the collaborative work between teachers and students, which always configuring the support demand by students as well as reasonable adjustment. For that, workshops are held with teachers and students on established committees with students with disabilities during the semester. It is emphasized that the student with a disability is not the responsibility of the therapeutic team because it's the responsibility of the teacher and his ability to find the support that the student needs in conjunction with the required professionals. Therefore, it helps that the teacher does not emphasize what the student cannot do and find the environmental barriers that are limit their learning to eliminate them. The technological resources that can accompany the student learning process are also analyzed in this way. The university allocates resources that are required in a personalized way. For example, Victor Reader, display tablets among others. For this, we use the following tools: mappings, PCP, person-centered planning, PR, individual plan for reasonable adjustment, anecdotal record for observer classes, sign language interpret. The support allows the students' need to be integrated into the curriculum for all students, which includes complementary methodologies and evaluation according to the needs of the students, generating an academic and accessibility process. The following video shows 3 students from the university who have accompanied them from the first level, especially Danilo and Gabi, who have challenged us to believe in them. Because at the beginning we were very afraid that they might not succeed because we saw their great difficulties, but we did not see their great potential. At the moment, they have achieved their autonomy in learning, and we hope that they soon graduate.
I am Gabriela Sigüencia. The university helps me understand my status as a person with autism through a functional evaluation process based on potential educational planning based in my interests and needs. My dream is to work as a child educator with the same condition and to do a master's degree in arts.
Soy Danilo Borges Pacheco, estudio en la carrera de Gerencia y Liderazgo. La universidad me ha ayudado a superar mis barreras sociales, de aprendizaje de comunicación, mediante el apoyo de mi compañero tutor y tutorías personalizadas con los docentes. Ahora apoyo a los estudiantes con discapacidad que ingresan a la universidad mediante talleres de sensibilización sobre el tema de la discapacidad. Mi sueño es trabajar en la formación de líderes y generar emprendimientos para personas con discapacidad y sus familias.
Soy una persona sorda, estudio la carrera de educación básica, 6º nivel. Yo estoy agradecida con esta universidad gracias al apoyo. Me dan una beca al 60% y un compañero tutor que sabe de lengua de señas. Yo en el futuro quiero graduarme, trabajar con los niños. Además, quiero viajar a diferentes países para conocer la educación y la cultura de las personas sordas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. With that, we'll hopefully get to talk to her more about the rest of the program, but in the interest of time and respect to our other panelists, we'll move on to Djati. So thank you, Miriam.
Thank you, moderators. Good afternoon. First of all, I just want to say thanks to organizing committee that have give me chance to presenting our speech entitled Affirmative Admission for Students with Disabilities. Okay, I just want to show you about Indonesia. Of course, maybe not all of you understood about Indonesia. Indonesia, we're living with more than 17,000 of aliens. So you can imagine how difficult our life. Yeah. And then we have also more than 700 local indigenous languages. And our population more than 200,000 million. And we also have many universities in Indonesia. Our university names is Brawijaya. Brawijaya, name of king, long time ago. What we call it the Mochammad Empire. At that time, our empire, Mochammad Empire, almost occupy Southeast Asia, include northern part of Australia. You can imagine that. But that's not mean we try to occupy Malaysia or Philippines, of course. This vision is our university vision. We're living with many kind of language. We living with different ethnicity. There are indigenous, and some of them are also migrants. And then different skin, different religion or something like that. That is what we call it very important for our university, that we call it unity in diversity. That's why our university vision and mission is inclusive. In our vision, meaning of the inclusive is not just think about disabled, but we believe we are a body race worker, we believe about plurality, we believe in high quality. It is very important for us to build our vision and mission. That's why the particle of this vision is implementing inclusive in the term of disability. It is very important for us to understand about that. Of course, Brawijaya University is public university. It's not old university, but we can look in this. We just built in 1963 and located in Malang, East Java, Indonesia, and now carrying 17 faculties or college. Yeah? So we have many students, almost 70,000 of students in our university. But now, our university, the first university in Indonesia implementing this disabled inclusion in higher education. And our position in the world ranks, if you know Time Higher Education World Ranking, and also KS World Ranking, our university ranking about 600 until 700 rank in world ranks. And also, after we educated our students, some of our students, even we not design it yet, they come to our university, they are disabled, especially physical disabled. At that time, we not design about them, for them. After we have experience, some of them is good and best student. It is a surprise for us. Some of them, even they have a disability in terms of physical, they have excellence and then our academic rank good or something like that. And then we're trying to seek more, more wide way of thinking to accept student in another term of disability. So for accelerating education quality for the student with disability, we mix system, what we call it admission quota and support system for our university enrollment. This something very important for us based on our institutional-based policy. That means after we evaluate with SWOT analysis, we providing accessible entrance tests. In Indonesia, in our Indonesian system, to be a university student is very high competition. And today, our university not the top in number one in terms of student competition from high school. And we have many kind of three kind of student enrollment system. The first is, the first is based on the high school report, and another system is based on tests, entrance tests, and another system, the third system is independent system, depend on university. In this system, we trying make admission quota for disabled, and we trying to make it accessible entrance test. We make a system, what we call it, test modification and accommodation, and also supplement measure like interview, psychological test, and past achievement test. Yeah. This means we contribute to national policy on inclusive education in university, and also disability support services. Now, even we have no department, specific department for disabled, but we trying to make a disabled center, and we built in 2012, and our research center has been replicated by more than 5 universities in Indonesia. In this term, we provide disability support for students with disability, such as peer supporter, note taker, sign language interpreter, tutorial student in addition to regular lectures, also learning accommodation, cover test modification for test accommodation and assistive technology. That's to cultivating disability awareness through research published periodically in Indonesia by the journal published. And then this is data of our students. And not so many, of course, deaf at about 78 and blind 18, physical disability 34, and intellectual disability about 13. Comparing our student, total student, is more than 60,000 students, so it's not so many. But surprise, our students, they have many good performance, like SDS received also Inclusive Award in 2015 from Indonesian Ministry of Education. Although some students are renowned with excellent achievement. We call Dwi Putranto as Indonesian representative in Master Deaf Star in 2018 in Italy. Anjas Pramono is the student with osteogenesis imperfecta, won gold medal in international research innovation, invention, and solution exploration, or IRISE, in Malaysia. And we also committed our finance that the most problem, and trying to change the tackle the pre-higher education system, and then student with disability college readiness, lecturer competent, assistive technology, infrastructure, and inclusive building, also attitudinal barriers. Our future plan, of course, college transitional program and also career transitional program. Okay, thank you. It's enough. Just trying to make a brief.
Very good.
Yes, good.
Now we'll switch out some of our presenters who are sitting behind us, because there's a lot of us on the panel, as you can see.
Yes,
Yeah. And so Maya and Yakir from JDC will, either one is fine, will present next.
Sorry, this one.
Okay.
So, good afternoon. My name is Yakir Pnini-Mandel, and I come from an organization named JDC. The JDC is a Jewish American organization. It's operated in 70 countries around the world, working global, and Joint Israel, that's the organization that I'm coming from, is a social organization who developed the next generation of services, social services in Israel. Israel Unlimited is a partnership between, it's a strategic partnership between JDC Israel, the government of Israel, and the Ruderman Family Foundation. We develop services for people with disabilities in Israel in all aspects of life. And before Maya here will present the program that actually we came to talk about, I'll talk generally about our model. Our main goal is to close the gap between, to increase the gap between people with and without disabilities, as I said, in all aspects of life. And I will say a few words about the general model that we're working at. We call it the DNA. The first stage is the D. In this stage, we are trying to focus on the needs, and we are trying to find the best practice in the world and to adapt it to our reality in Israel. The second stage, nurture, we are in this stage we're actually operate pilot programs with research, and in the end accelerate, we scale up the programs, and the government is taking responsibility about the programs that we developed and accelerate it. That's actually the way we work. And now Maya will present one of our programs, being a student. So Maya, please.
Hi. My name is Maya. I'm the national coordinator of Being a Student program. Being a Student program started in 2017, and it currently operates in 4 different academic institutions in Israel. Before we continue, let me introduce you to Omer. Omer Lahat participated in the program in its first year at Ono Academic College. Let's watch Omer.
בעיניי להיות סטודנט זה ממש נהדר. קודם כל לקחתי קורסים שבאמת הרחיבו בי אופקים. החינוך ומשפט תרם לי המון, גם התקשורת בין אישית. הקשר עם החונכים, שזה קשר טוב, הם עוזרים לי בעצם להבין ולהמחיש לי את החומר שנלמד בקורסים. הם יושבים איתי, מתרגמים איתי במבחנים. אני מתכונן בשיטה מיוחדת משלי, כי אני לא קורא ולא כותב, אז יש לי גם קבצי שמע, אבל גם מקריאים לי בעל פה.
כהורים לילד עם שיתוק מוחין, הבנו שפחות או יותר המסלול המאורגן לחייו הסתיים בגיל 20. עומר וחבריו היו למעשה מגיל 20 מודרים מכל החוויות שחבריהם עומדים לעבור, ובוודאי לימודים באקדמיה היו מחוץ לתחום. לפני כשנה נחשפנו לתוכנית להיות סטודנט. ופתאום חולפת שנה, ואנחנו רואים שעומר הוא סטודנט מלא, רואים כמה הוא מאושר באלף ומאושר בעין, פשוט מדהים.
יש הענות מאוד מאוד גדולה ורצון ללמוד וגמישות להתאים את הנהלים, את הדרכי ההוראה, המון נכונות ללמוד ולהיות קשוב לסטודנטים שלנו ולהבין את הצרכים שלהם ואיזה התאמות נדרשות.
איפה אני אהיה עוד 10 שנים? אני אהיה עם זוגיות מאושרת, בעזרת השם גם עם ילדים, לומד באוניברסיטה, מחפש עבודה, כמו כל בן אדם רגיל.
As we all know, pursuing higher education for a person with disability can be a life-changing experience that cultivates a positive sense of self-worth. This in turn improves the professional and employment prospects as well as the social mobility and integration within the society. As you can see in the research presented, 42% of the students with disability feel that they don't have enough support to pursue an academic degree. 33% had considered quitting academic programs they already enrolled in because of the lack of accessibility and or the accommodation of the absence of needed accommodations. Some of the students will probably quit their studies out of feelings of frustration and inability. For some of the students, things could have been very different if they could learn on their own pace. Others just needed someone to guide them through the maze of academia and assist them in developing personalized skills so they can overcome their daily ongoing challenges effectively. But more than that, there are people with disability who can't even get the admission on their own, and therefore do not dare to think they could pursue higher education. They assume that it's not for them. Being a student program was designed for them. Our main goal is to help people with disabilities access higher education and support them throughout their studies. Moreover, the program goals are holistic, as they extend from the student with disability to his or her peer student group and the rest of the environment. We seek to change the prevailing attitude towards people with disabilities in the academic institution. We do so by raising awareness to issues of accessibility and by creating opportunities for social interactions between students, staff, and students with disabilities. Finally, our goal is to create a model that can be replicated on any university campus. As we develop our pilot program, we collaborate with the host academic institutions to implement, evaluate, and improve the model. We adjust the model constantly based on deep learning from our experience and the student feedback. Because our time is short, I will highlight two sections of the model. The first one is the student journey. The program provides comprehensive personal guidance and counseling throughout the entire academic experience, from admission to achieving every one of the students' goals. I would like to elaborate on two components. The first one is the student tutoring. Each student in program is supported by a peer student. As you could see, Omer from the movie, needed academic support because he cannot read or write. Other students need social support, so the mentor will help them developing a set of skills such as how to approach the professors, how to deal with fellow students, and more generally, how to navigate campus life. We learned that the student tutor is a crucial support for almost all of the students in the program. The second component in the student experience I would like to elaborate on is the Being a Student workshop. The workshop is required for all the students in the program, and it is the only time when all of them meet together. The workshop focuses on examining the personal learning experiences of students by analyzing different events and interactions from different aspects of campus life and develop the strategies needed in order to succeed in class and on campus. Last one, sorry. The second section in the model I would like to elaborate on is the role of the campus coordinator. The campus coordinator is a key player in ensuring the success of the program. Therefore, she has to be a high-skilled and professional person. The campus coordinator manages various aspects involved in the program. She supports the student personally, she guides the student tutors, she assists and provides professional knowledge to the administrative staff, and she advocates for inclusive learning environment. That was the model in brief. I'll be happy to elaborate in the break. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll turn to our experts from right here in Austria, right? So Lukas, Tim, and Claudia.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We'll wait for the slides to be there. There they are. This is Lukas to my left. My name is Tim, and Claudia is sitting to my right. And I'm going to present you, or we are going to present you, a project that we call ISU, or ISU in German. It stands for Individual Studying Support. So what is that about? Back up to 2017, we had the situation that some of our students would take personal assistance into the university, but only very few students would get personal assistance from the state. So we needed a system that we could give this assistance to them. And in order not to confuse the two concepts, we called it individual support rather than personal assistance. Two coincidental key factors back in the day were that our university, together with some other colleges around, launched a program, teachers' education program, in inclusive pedagogy. So we kind of had people there studying this, and people who need to do so-called school practice during their Bachelor of Education. And the second key factor was that there was a project call by the Ministry of Education, and it required partners. So we were looking out for partners. We were finding Claudia and her college, but we actually knew each other before, and we handed in this project proposal, and we got the funding. So we are a service learning project. That means that we combine academic teaching for inclusive teachers to be with their practice that they usually do in schools with children, but we let them support their fellow peers with disabilities at the university. We do that with 2 partner institutions, and it is all about studying 1 semester, lots of theory, organizational skills and so on, and then another semester they would support their peers. And we have repeated this package of 1 + 1 semester 5 times now, so that we would always have freshly educated supporters the next semester when the others were finished. A few numbers. Per semester we have between 6 to 22 supporters, so that's 1 seminar full. And we have 8 to 13 students who are supported. And sometimes we also pay a few supporters if our teaching degree students do not fulfill the requirements. And these are usually between 2 to 6 persons per semester. We also have an evaluation going on parallelly, but we'll hear about this later. To give you a short overview about the time, in 2017, we employed Lukas as a coordinator. So it's pretty much the slide that our colleague showed us before that his tasks are, but he'll talk about it later. In 2018, we had the first supporters starting who were educated in 1 seminar, and since then this has been running. And now in 2020, our pilot project is coming to an end, so the funding from the ministry will run out, and we'll hope to find ways to continue this, but of course, learning from our experiences, we might set this up in another framework.
Thank you. I'm happy to give you a quick overview of some of our supporters' activities. Please be aware that these are just some examples, and there are many, many more. There are some tasks for blind and visually impaired students, like accompanying to different destinations within the university buildings and different rooms, or making literature accessible, or prepare tactile graphics, or even acting as an icebreaker to initiate communication between fellow students and professors and staff members. There are tasks for students who have mobility or motoric issues, like assisting with avid doors or other obstacles, or in writing or in taking notes for lessons. For students with autistic perception, we have support like organizing the schedule for the upcoming semester, or for interpersonal communication or social inclusion. There are tasks for students with psychological issues like absence replacement in the lectures. Then there are tasks for students with chronic issues like support with adequate knowledge in acute situations. For example, if there is a student who is fainting regularly or needs diabetes-related support. What is this? Okay. So my job as the ISO coordinator is to identify the needs of students with with impairments, as well as the abilities, the experiences of the supporters, and then finally to match the two of them together as a supporting team. And if Tim already mentioned it, if the teaching degree students do not fulfill the requirements, I recruit so-called paid supporters. I also offer individual counseling and I provide information about the project issue. And last but not least, I'm also a teacher in the training seminar.
Yes, and we had evaluation parallel by this project, so we could analyze it and we find some weaknesses, but strengths as well. So here you can see a few weaknesses. We had a very strict time structure, so we had to act in semester logic and not in the logic of individual student needs. It was hard that the students, they need support, that they calculate a semester before what their needs will be. So it was very hard for the teaching degrees students that they plan their work. And they have to do 50 hours supporting, so for much of them it was a bit hard to fill the hours. We had a lot of administrative work and we missed IT support because it started very quickly, this project. So, but we had strengths as well. We used synergies and partnership. We had the partnership between University of Vienna and College of Teacher Education in Lower Austria, but we used synergies internal of university between the disability office and the library to make literature accessible for blind students. The teacher degree students, they learned individual support by peer learning. And we know it's the intensivest learning. And then we had the win-win situation for 4 groups. For the students with disability, they get individual support. For the teaching degree students, because they learned a new form of teaching, which we need in the future. We have the win-win situation for both institutions, and we have the win situation for the future pupils at school.
After the pilot project ends this year in April, after 3 years of pilot project duration, the seminars, the project coordination and the individual support continue until the end of the year. We have various ideas for going on with the project after this year, and we would be happy to meet you afterwards and share our ideas with you. Maybe you have some ideas for us, so please get in touch with us. We are very glad. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. I look forward to hearing the results of your pilot project at the end of the year. That'll be great. Last but certainly not least, Amena will present to us.
I'm happy to stand over there.
Oh, okay, from the podium.
Okay. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Amena El-Saie and I'm from Egypt and I'm representing my organization Helm. So just to give you a quick brief about what we do. So we're focused on employment. So that's how we got into the market in the first place. And then after we started working in the field of employment, we discovered there's a lot of issues with accessibility. So as we all know, it's a cross-cutting issue. And what brought us to the higher education part was that we were really concerned about the certain calibers that companies are requesting from Helm to help us provide in order to work in different companies as well as the government. So the project was kicked off about a year and a half ago, and the idea of it is that we want to ensure the full inclusion of students with disabilities in higher education in Egypt. And to do that, and that was the how, is to establish university centers in some of the top universities in Egypt, and to start a pilot program, which actually this is how Helm operates. The idea is that whenever we tackle a problem, we start looking for the digging deep, and of course we didn't do that on our own. We actually have a very powerful team. So we partnered with USAID, and also we have on board Amedist, which is an education institution in Egypt, and also we started to partner with the Ministry of Higher Education. So what we did is, you'll see these are the logos of the 5 top universities in Egypt, and the scale that we're talking about is huge. I mean, only one university, Cairo University, has over 250,000 students on campus. So we're talking about a small city. So that's another aspect that I'd like to put into consideration. So today I'm actually listening to all of you, and I'm thinking of all the different challenges that each country faces and each type of educational institution faces, depending on the different issues that we face and how we tackle them, which is actually very inspiring. So this is one of the core things that we face. In Egypt, there's around 100 million people who live in Egypt. And in each of these universities, which are honestly like a small city, or even a big one for some people, and this is why we actually started to sign contracts and get the buy-in of each of the university presidents in each of the top 5 universities. Then we started to work on the fundamentals of that. So there has been a lot of trial and errors for similar projects that happened before in Egypt. So we studied these projects, and of course we based the whole project on the study that has been made by USAID in order to understand the issues that all the universities and higher institutions in Egypt face, which brought us to understand that the whole point doesn't just start with inclusion of people with disabilities, but it's much deeper than that. It's about the system. So we wanted to understand, you'll find that our project involves a lot of working on the ground. So yes, we had a few set of standards that we wanted to push through the centers, like obviously the goals that we mentioned, like a lot of the people today mentioned, and a lot of us know, which we want students on campus to have the full inclusion and to have the full experience. But how do we do that when we already have a lot of issues within the universities themselves that are already being faced by students without disabilities? So this is why we started working on setting up a team. So it's not just about the results that we're producing through the project, but actually setting up the center in a way that works. So we started training and doing capacity building programs for the people and selecting the people who will be working with us inside the university. So we're like a facilitator, if you may say. And then what we would do is we brought all the key stakeholders on board. So this roundtable was created after the first year. We started working on basically studying what are the kind of issues for each different type of stakeholder on campus and off campus. And when we're talking about a full educational experience, we brought into the roundtable the Minister of Transport. We brought in the ones responsible for the roads around the campus, the whole experience from the moment the student leaves his house or if he's living on campus, in order to study how is the student being impacted, but all the kinds of issues that could face him, not just on campus. So the discussions actually eventually went to lead to legislative orders. So we wanted to study what are the already existing laws, and we wanted to start working on how can we effectively implement changes that are reasonable. So we talk about reasonable accommodation, and if you think about it, it's a way of thinking. And this is what we started to remove the big hulk, if I may say, for all the universities. Because once you say inclusion, there's a set of standards that people are used to. But the kind of end point that we want to end this project with is that we want all the university center leaders to understand the concept of how to create revolutionary solutions and to continue innovating after Helm is gone and after this project is done. So from the very beginning of this project, we designed it to end. We designed it to be a project that enables university centers to know how to build and to grow in order to help students after the project is done. So of course the roundtable involved a lot of other stakeholders as well. So we involved all type of universities from the region and internationally as well. And we started bringing in the ministries, every single person who could be affected by this, and of course persons with disabilities organizations as well were presented. Of course there's a lot of them who we would like to keep the conversation going and to involve them more. So that's another thing about capacity building. It wasn't just about understanding disability. Understanding disability is one key point, but as I said, it's also about project management skills, about learning what other centers from around the world are doing. And this is why I love the idea that we actually partnered, for example, with AHEAD, and we started to work on sending different groups, and I'm going to be talking more about that, to other countries and to other models and to experience the different aspects that we want our centers to be like, so just to open their horizons about what potentially their center could be like. And of course to involve them in the building of the centers themselves so that they feel ownership and then they take it on and take the lead. So of course we're supporting them and showing them how the current studies are being done and how the current performances that would actually help their center actually implement accessibility solutions on campus. So we started doing the auditing. So as Helm, we have a unit for accessibility audits, and we helped for each university 3 buildings to be assessed and help them to create them more accessible. And of course empower them and support them to understand how this is done. This is the US study tour that we did. So basically we picked people from each of the universities and from the Ministry of Higher Education, and we took them on a very rich trip to the US to actually see for themselves what very advanced centers are doing so that we can bring the knowledge. And honestly, it's not just about their learning on the trip, but rather when they come back, they understand, oh, it could be done. So then they could actually start looking for continuous research and the modern practices that we actually basically every day there's new practices out there. So another important thing is how to affect policy change. So after results started showing from the program, we started bringing in the higher, basically the Ministry of Higher Education and engaging them more. So now we're showing them real results, real problems, and how we're solving them so that they can actually start to take this and make it into policies and and to mainstream it effectively. So what's next? Basically, the idea of making this like everything we do in Helm. We try to create a pilot, make and learn as we go. So the most important thing of this project is how agile it is. So we don't really set standards from the very beginning and set like, this is what we're gonna do, these are the types of trainings we're gonna do. Yes, we are training people, we are doing capacity building, and we're doing a lot of things. But we need to understand that we are learning. The whole point of doing these projects is to learn and to understand that there's unexpected. This is actually why a problem exists in the first place. And this is why we want to start, of course, finishing all the issues that we're facing on campuses. The project is to create 5 pilot models in these 5 top universities, prove they work, write down everything that we faced, transfer the knowledge to other universities, and then keep learning. So the idea, and this is what I'm hoping to get out of today, is that the people here on stage and everybody on board, I'd love to have this learning conversation going and to share our experiences and get more knowledge from everybody else so that these centers can actually continue to grow after we're gone. Thank you very much.
So it looks like we have a little bit of time to take questions, and I want to make sure that everyone's at the table, so maybe if Miriam can scoot in somewhere there. I know that we provided you with a lot of information at once, and so you're probably still thinking through some of the things you just heard. But does anyone have any immediate questions that come to mind for the entire group? Yes, ma'am. Okay, ask one, please. Amena's question is, that's what I'm doing. The question was for Amena to say what the indicators of success are for her pilot program.
Okay, so basically the indicators is that we establish the centers effectively to start involving students on campus and all the different types of stakeholders to make sure that so this is the results so far. So basically that all the presidents of the universities, that their policies and that there are bylaws that are issued for each center, that each center is working effectively in an accessible location, involves all the current stakeholders, and to start working and implementing work on the ground. So basically we actually give the centers the ability to create their own plans. That's the most important part, and then to follow through with their plans and see if they're effective. So actually the initiation to come from within, and then to measure the impact that they're doing and that they're actually implementing the plans. So to evaluate and to monitor the work that the centers themselves are doing.
Yes, sir. I can hear you. I think this question might be best for Kristie, if you want to answer it. So the question was, how does a university mitigate the challenges it has in order to become more inclusive? What are some of the steps that can be taken to start the process?
So I think I should say you should join an organization like Guden or AHEAD so you can get support.
And he said he's a member of Guden.
Okay, good. Sorry, I could not hear that very well. Guden is still in its early stages. I think I would definitely put a question like that out to the listserv to get some help there. I think what Amena was talking about with really studying what are the barriers and trying to figure out what those barriers are to then figure out how to move forward from there. I know a lot of what we do in our national organization is reaching out to people who are our peers, looking at other universities who are being successful, and then talking to those professionals on those campuses to find out what did they do, how did they get to be successful. So I know on my campus, I have peer universities that I will contact them to say, I want to make a change, I want to be more like you, how did you do that? So I would look for peers, look for other professionals in networks, reach out to those people, ask the questions. Those are some initial suggestions. I hope that helps.
Yes, ma'am. Right here. And then you're next. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, yeah. Use your microphone if you have it. There we go.
Okay. Oh, my God. How can you do this, guys? So my name is Natalia Privé. I'm doing research currently in United Nations University in Maastricht in the Netherlands. And I'm working on the inclusive policies and the efficiency of these policies for inclusion at universities in Spain. And we have, they say, amazing policies and very inclusive and very accessible. Education is actually free for people who have a disability. However, there are not many people getting enrolled. So my question for you, for everyone who wants to answer is, first of all, how do you with, I don't know if there's the finances for people with disabilities also because their costs are much higher also in like for living and for resources in general, for their families as well. And then what about the stigma for families when you have to move to another region? How do you promote and encourage that to families as well and give them safety? Thank you.
Great. Who wants to tackle that? Anybody have any thoughts? Amena. And then our friends from Austria.
Okay, so I would just suggest, like, as per the project that we're working on, the funding that we got from USAID, for example, there are a lot of funds out there, and to start creating, like basically opening the market for investors and for whether private, public, or whatever form of funding, but to show them that there's a sustainable way to invest in students with disabilities. So for example, as part of our project, USAID is actually, they're funding the assistive tools and the technology tools that are requested as per each center. So the idea is that each center starts to create their wish list, which is based on, doesn't have to be technology, it just has to be like what the students really need, and accordingly, and as per each student, we start to allocate the finances for the students and approving the budget. But I would say, like, there's a lot of, I think the problem is there's a lot of funding out there, but they don't find these kinds of projects. So one of the important things that I would suggest is, like, big institutions such as HAD and so on could actually market these opportunities so that actually people could find, or some portal that this could actually be one of the website roles, is to publicize such things. So.
Tim, did you have something?
Just like yours, Amena, we have a very big university too, and it's sometimes so big that you don't know what kind of knowledge you already have inside your house. And I discover that there are colleagues doing research or coming up with solutions about something that I need to support my students that I haven't been known for the past 6 years. So that's one recommendation, to try to develop things in-house or use the resources that are there. And this is what we called synergy before. And the project that we presented to you, most of the support work actually works for free there, because our teaching degree students, they have to do their work practice, usually in schools, and we have them do that in our university. So that's 50 hours per person, or even more, done for free. And they get a reward, they get credits for this, and they learn through it. So of course, this can not be done with anything, and not with infrastructure, and there needs to be money for something. But I just want to suggest that in some cases, you can try to think without money, or without a lot of money, at least.
Djati, did you have a?
Sorry, in my experience, we have no study program or department for disability. So we learn by doing. Yeah. Because we have two kind of implementing such kind of condition. The first is ideal condition. If we think about ideal condition, every lecturer have, pedagogic feeling. If you know about your disability student, it make our feelings not enjoy. Yeah, it is very important. This is ideal. But no, in pragmatical condition, I think all of you know, like KS and time higher education. Also, the indicator is receives many, how many disability students should be received. So the two kind of approach. In after my experience here, we aware about the disability, and we established a research center for disabled. And we also agree with another friends that we should be collaborate with others, because our experience, we have not enough experience to understand about this. Sure. Okay, this one.
Thank you. We are officially out of time, but I did promise one question here because I already pointed to you to go next. So please be brief and direct.
Okay, no problem. My question is for Kristie. My name is Shira Yalon Shamovitz. I'm the Dean of Students at Ono Academic College in Israel. We would like to think of ourselves as a very inclusive higher education institute and very passionate about it. You mentioned that part of your group is of the Gudin is looking at criteria or the process of becoming members, and I was wondering if at this time, if you would like to become an active member of Gudin, would that be open for?
Yes, that's a great question. If you send an email to Gudin, which is Gudin adahead.org. You can just email and say you want to be a member. At this point, you can get on the listserv, and then once more information comes out, then they will have that. Right now, it's just a free network that's being established. Once these working groups have decided how this will be funded, there could be a paid membership, but right now they're just trying to get people as members, get people talking to each other, because again, that's what we want, is that collaboration. That's really the biggest point of it, is to be able to talk to each other and get ideas from each other. We know that as most of our members are in the United States, and it's very different than being in other countries. So we want to have that communication happening. So anyone is welcome to email that email address and get on the listserv. We would love it.
Thank you all so much for your time and attention, and I know all of our panelists will be around to answer your questions in further detail. So please join me in thanking them for being here today.